Well, good afternoon, and today this is Mwanzo TV. My name is Kevin Sewe, and today we are discussing matters to do with Eurobond. And of course, to help us discuss these issues of Eurobond, I have in the studio Professor Fred Ogola, who is governance expert, financial expert, and of course, economic expert, who will be helping us to understand what is Eurobond, what does a repayment plan of Kenya means. Now, karibu sana katika in our studio.
Thank you very much, my brother. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe to start with, maybe you can tell us maybe what is Eurobond? Maybe what does it means?
Yeah. First of all, when you hear Eurobond, the term Eurobond can be very misleading. So what I don't know is that it was done by design or it was done by intention, so that Kenyans don't know exactly what is this debt. When you say Eurobond, people might think that it is a bond from the European market or bond from Europe being brought to Kenya. But the actual sense, that is not the case. Eurobond is more of currency rather than the location. So this is whereby Kenyans asked, Kenyan government asked for money to be borrowed to them in euros. So it could even be you, if you have euros, you could go and trade these euros. It will be done electronically. You wire your euros to the government of Kenya through CBK, and also you become part of the investors for Eurobond. So this could be financial institutions like banks. Maybe the government discovered they had excess euros, so they could wire it out. Also, this could also make it look international. So anybody from any part of the world could actually be able to lend the government money in euros. So it's not about that European Union or Europeans gave Kenyans euros, so it was like government to government, like G2G thing, but it was just individuals who actually gave Kenyans money in euros. So it's nothing to do with the origin of the country, the geographical location, more to do with the currency. So this money was done because government discovered they had about a lot of what we would call infrastructure projects they need to do. And you see, if these infrastructure projects, you pay some of that thing using foreign currency, for example, you are importing something, so it makes sense to be lent money in euros, so now you spend that money from foreign currency. But for example, if you lend Kenyan government this money in Kenya shillings, and then they have to convert it into foreign currencies and use it, then it becomes more complex. So you could even find one day talking about euro dollar, or you can talk about euro yen. Euro dollar could mean that it's a currency floated in euros, but also you can invest in dollars. Euro yen could be that is from Japanese currency. So one day you could also find it in other countries. So it's just a way of finding ways to look at it. For example, if Kenyans want to import fuel from the Middle East, you could find they can use a Middle East, you can issue a bond in the Middle East to get the currency in the Middle East, then buy oil using that one. So those could be all strategies that are used by economists to ensure that you cushion a country's economy against what they call FX cost. FX cost is not a complex thing. It's just the difference between the currencies when you are exchanging. So hata mama mboga anaweza elewa hii kitu. It's just a matter of kupeana pesa kwa currency ya Ulaya. Si ati pesa ilitoka Ulaya ikakuja Kenya. Inaweza kuwa Mkenya kama uko na dollars, pengine kama wewe ni bodaboda, ama unaweza pata kama wewe ni driver, umepeleka mzungu kwa airport, amekupatia $100, unaweza kupatia serikali 100 euros na you are a Eurobond investor.
Okay. Yes. So, and perhaps maybe it's not 10 years, and of course our bond is maturing, I think, in January 2024, and President Ruto committed that he will be paying or maybe repaying in bits. Maybe perhaps, what does that mean?
Yeah, sasa unaona the problem with what the president said. When I listen to the president, every time I listen to the president, we love him, but I'm really concerned as an economist, because what he said does not make financial sense. In all financial sense, you should never be able to pay your debt early. Tuseme, you have borrowed money to start a business and you pay your debt earlier, yet you don't get any gain for that, because remember, these things were well signed. They are well signed that even if you pay earlier, there's no any financial or interest benefit by paying earlier. then it does not make sense while you continue borrow in other areas. So why are you paying these debts mapema, yet you could actually hold this and pay at the right time so they don't have to borrow elsewhere? Unless he has enough money that he does not need to borrow anything at all, is when he can pay earlier. But I don't see there's a need for paying earlier. So that was my worrying and concern. The second thing is that when you pay in bits, what does that mean? It's called debt restructuring. So I have studied data from 1968 about debt restructuring, and there are 4 things which are really wrong with the debt restructuring. One is that statistics shows that all the countries that have ever done debt restructuring have ended up with a better debt book than the ones who have not done so. Unakumbuka wakati wa COVID, when Uhuru Kenyatta said that he's going to help Kenyans who are suffering from loans to do debt restructuring. First, you have to change agreement. You have to incur a legal fee. You understand? And then you have to spread the payment in some terms, and they calculate the interest. If you're supposed to pay some money in January, they push that interest and add it as what you call principal, which means in the end, repaying your debt in bits become more expensive. Thirdly, it also keeps you in a debt burden for a longer period of time, because the more you pay in bits, not paying on time, also means that you are going to have more debt burden. And lastly, you end up with a bad debt score. For example, no matter what you say, your credit score becomes bad. So by Kenyans paying in bits but not paying as they are supposed to pay, you are not complying with the debt repayment. Now, next time you go to negotiate that, unasema, wewe unasemanga unataka debt restructuring. Like I'm sure when we were growing up, I used to have a friend of mine that every time, he was the most indebted person when we were growing together. Actually, in the seminary, we used to receive the same amount of allowances per month. This guy was always in debt. And I realized, if for someone to be in debt all the time, what is wrong with you? There must be something you are doing wrong. Then when we were almost finishing the philosophy thing there, I found he was dismissed because he was a seminarian, he had a girlfriend, the girl was pregnant and were given birth, so he was trying to pay the girl not to report him. That's why he was always in debt. So the fact that Kenya cannot be able to pay the debt, because when you're applying for a debt, they look for your debt qualification, they look at your debt worthiness. So by the time Kenyans were getting debt, the people who lend Kenya money do due diligence and discover that Kenya can repay that money on time. The fact that Kenya needs to pay it much later means that we have not used our money well. That's why we want to pay much later. I don't know whether, Sewe, you ever been with a friend whereby you earn the same amount of money, but this guy is always broke. There must be somewhere he's misusing money. Also, we can work within the same company, and my children have better school fees, better schools, they have better education, they can put on better clothes, but yours are not. Could be that you're putting money on alcohol. It could be we are putting money in the wrong place. So where has Kenyan been taking money that's the wrong place that is now making Kenya not be able to pay their debt on time? I think what is happening in the country is that we do not have accountability. So we should be told, if this debt was due to be paid by this date, how comes it is being rescheduled? The debt restructuring during COVID was because the economy was bad. Some people had lost their jobs. So we understand the external shock that was actually affecting people in their debt repayment. But in this case, how comes other countries are paying their debt on time while Kenya only look for restructuring? And restructuring makes you more indebted, and that takes us to become less economically viable. So for me, I'm thinking that those 4 things are going to affect Kenya in terms of economic situation. Okay.
Now, I don't know, do we have that money to pay? Because I understand maybe we want also maybe to borrow other money to pay the current debt that we have. I don't know, do we have that money as a country?
Yeah, so what I shall tell people as an economist, when you borrow money from anybody, you stop working for yourself, you begin working for the person who has lent you money. So immediately we are taking more money from World Bank and IMF. Kenyans begin to work for World Bank and IMF and stop working for themselves. And that's why you find that IMF and World Bank have an office at Treasury. They have a permanent office because now they're the ones controlling even our budget. Because when someone has borrowed you money that you cannot pay, you can even tell them, take control of my house. Do you want to have the key? So they want to tell you when to use your toilet, when to use your kitchen, when to use your bathroom, when to use your sitting room. That's what is happening at the moment. So if you ask me, do we have money to pay? Yes, we do. Because remember that what we are having a challenge here, and let's say the truth. Have you heard our leaders talking about where Singapore is and where Singapore was at independence? And have you heard that manifesto for Kenya Kwanza and the one Azimio, both of them were benchmarking with Singapore during their campaign, isn't it? The implementation, they don't benchmark with Singapore. They benchmark with DRC Congo. They benchmark with South Sudan. Because after they take over, they tell, oh, we are not as bad as DRC. Oh, we are not as bad as South of Sudan. But the point I'm trying to draw home here is that we have enough money, but when we bank in Singapore, what have they done to pay their debt so that they are better off in the debt book? Singapore has encouraged the culture of savings. Singapore saves 50% of the GDP is from saving. For us, it's only 12% of GDP that comes from saving. Secondly, are we preaching enough the culture of savings? Hustler Fund was supposed to be encouraging saving. You tell me how much Hustler Fund has brought to the Kenyan economy to help us to improve the savings culture. The second thing we have a challenge there is that we have the most expensive government ever. So our government, the cost of running this government is on the roof. First, foreign trips, isn't it? Yeah. That can be cut. Secondly, the cost of transporting this government to the ground in Kenya. Do you know how many vehicles drives the Kenya Kwanza government? I'm an economist, I have, they are 1,625. And you can count them, for example. If I don't count the president's cars, because the president's cars can never be counted, he has to enjoy the legacy of government. But I start from the vice president. He does 30 vehicles. And at the same time, he might have 60 on the same day. For example, if he is going to Mombasa for a conference, 30 will take him to the airport, as 30 is waiting for him in the airport in Mombasa to take him to the hotel. You see that? Musalia Mudavadi goes on 15 as the prime CS. All CS goes in 7. Then all the PSS goes in 5. Or Economic Council goes in 5 each. If you add that number, you'll get 1,625 vehicles on the road. Now, how is that costly? I'm not even counting the cost of buying those cars. I'm counting the daily cost of running them. In Toyota Kenya, to service one car, it is 300,000 shillings in Toyota Kenya. And these cars get serviced each time they hit 5,000 kilometers, which they hit twice a month. So if you look at that, then the fuel, they do 150 liters per day. If you add, because if you count all those things, 150 liters per day per car, you'll find that this one is going to cost the country 98.6 billion shillings per year. Now, you don't need those cars. If you cut that by 3/4, you can actually lower the cost. And then when you lower the cost of running government, you have enough money to repay the loan. So the focus is on, I'm not even talking about corruption. I'm not even talking about corruption that's happening in the country, because Uhuru Kenyatta told us we are losing 2 billion shillings per day. And we have never been told by Auditor General whether that is true or false. So we believe it's true because no one has come out to falsify it. Let William Ruto come and tell us it is not true or it is true. So if you look at all those avenues of losing money, we can pay back. Then thirdly, do we have any major infrastructure project going on? Because when Uhuru Kenyatta was borrowing the Eurobond, we had SGR, we had the expressway, isn't it? And we had very big road projects ongoing in the country. At the moment, which one is going on? So the taxes we are collecting, because we are collecting 3.6 trillion shillings per year in terms of taxes. Where are they going? So the money is there, but let us say, where is the money going? If there's no money, let us be told where the money is going. The issue is accountability and transparency. The money is there. If there's an economist like me sitting in that government, he'll sort them out in a few weeks, and Kenya will be back on track.
And maybe what you are saying, I understand that our loan is around $2 billion US. So between now and January, will we maybe collect such amount so that it can help us as a country maybe to pay that amount of loan? Because you're talking about cutting down on cost of maybe vehicles from the government, other ministries. I don't know. Can we collect that money within that period?
Yeah. First and foremost, let me be honest to you that how much of that money, which is our debt, came back to the economy. I have gone to court as leader of Linda Jamii, and we petitioned the court to give us the official numbers of debt. Do you know that there is no Kenyan who knows the official debt burden Kenya has? Because all those things you are hearing are rumors. Okay. Because let me just go to the law. That's why we draw the public debt. First and foremost, according to Appropriation Act, you cannot borrow, because we borrow for development, don't borrow for recurrent expenditure. So for development, you must pass by Appropriation Act, which is passed in Parliament, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Our official debt is 2.1 trillion. Official debt. Okay. But Treasury says our official debt is 6.1 trillion. But State House says that our debt is 9.58 trillion. So which is which? Those figures cannot be a typing error. There must be something really wrong. So we went to court and asked the court to call Treasury to prove to us that what is the official debt in Kenya. So no one knows. I wrote this article in Business Daily the other day. I was correcting Daily Nation that had said, given a debt for Kibaki, the debt for Moi, the debt for Uhuru, and the debt for Ruto. And I said, no. All those figures are wrong. The only correct figure is one of Kibaki. The rest are not true because they are not official. So if I wrote an article in Business Daily to correct Daily Nation, it means that I was right. Isn't that? They did not refuse to oppose because that's the same media house. So having said that, what I'm trying to say is that, first of all, we don't even know what our debt is transparently and officially in an accountable manner. So all these things, the debt is being used as an excuse. And that's why you heard the Deputy President saying, saying that 70% of the money they are collecting, they're using to repay the debt, and that's why the cost of living is high. So debt is being used as a way to tell Kenyans, you just suffer, we are paying debt. But these guys are not suffering. If you look at how they live their life, they're suffering. If you look at the kind of vehicles, you just go and stand on Valley Road. Just one day, if you don't have time, just stand on Valley and see how many cars are passing and how they look like. Look at how the government of Ruto is driving. Look at how Uhuru's government were driving. Look at how Kibaki's government were driving. Then you see a big contrast. Uhuru Kenyatta, when he was Minister for Finance, he introduced Passat, isn't it? Yeah. Do you see any Passat being driven by any minister? What are they driving? Guzzlers, isn't it? So if someone is driving a Guzzler, the other time you saw a car being imported for the president, isn't it? One of the most expensive ever. Look at the watch he puts on. The other day he was driving Maybach. A whole entourage of the president was Maybach. Brand new. Yet there was another 80 Land Cruisers which he has been using, staying in State House, has using another 80 Maybach. Look at the thing that happens in Kericho. When you stood in Kericho the day we are doing the Jamhuri celebration, the day we are doing the Shuja's Day in Kericho, if you stood on that road, you'll think that Kenya is a first world, depending on the vehicles passing. But if you look at the road, you realize we are third world. If you look at the people on the road, you see third world people, third world roads, but first class for Guzzlers. So how they live their life tells you it is not true that Kenya is broke. And I can tell you, if we were just accountable, in fact, I could tell you, today if you become the president of Kenya, I'll tell you what to do. Don't even waste time fighting people who stole money in the future. Every day, Kenya collects a minimum 9 billion shillings. Allocate that money properly, you will find that you can take care of Kenyan government without a problem. But these people are not honest because I told you, and let's go to facts. When Uhuru was the president, there's SGR, isn't it? There's Expressway, and another bigger project you ever had for was a Thika Highway, isn't it? In this current government, can you point out to me one mega project that you think is eating money? Just one.
They're still planning. Maybe they are still planning.
But if they are not doing any major project, where is the money going? Because Uhuru was borrowing money. So look here. I give these statistics again in my article. I say that Uhuru used to spend 60.2 billion shillings in servicing debt per month, isn't it? Ruto is doing something like 53, isn't it? Per month, isn't it? At the same time, Uhuru was giving people subsidies, isn't it? Yes, and there was low taxation. In Ruto's government, he's using less to service the debt. There is no infrastructure project. He's overtaxing Kenyans, isn't it? At the same time, he has withdrawn all the subsidies. So if there's no subsidies, where is the money going? You're overtaxing. Where are you taking the money? So the point is just that there is corruption. There's only one way to answer this question. And let me tell you what another thing to understand here. As an economist, Treasury is always an independent institution within the executive. But here in Kenya, Treasury is being controlled by the executive. Why am I saying so? Do you know that in Treasury, there's no PS Treasury, there's only CS Treasury that reports to the president directly, isn't it? But some other ministries, we have a PS, then reporting to the CS, then to the president. Do you know why? Treasury is a super ministry. Because even if you are a minister of land, if you don't sign something with the Treasury, you're wasting time. Because even if you are appointed minister for land, you're being told, allocate this land to so and so, you are unable to transfer land because it must pass through Treasury. Treasury even holds the country's asset, like land, title deeds for this country is in Treasury. So Treasury is not just like any, that's why Treasury needs to be very independent. But here, Treasury has its meeting in State House, isn't it? Treasury is being controlled by State House. In fact, we are having 4 arms of government at the moment. There's the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary, then we have the State House that controls all these arms of government. And that's why, according to me, I'm trying to tell Kenyans that we have a failed state. A failed state is a state whereby there is no accountability. The government has refused to give services to Kenyans the way Kenyans want. Judiciary is trying to tell us there's nothing they can do. And Parliament is telling us they don't know what we want, isn't it? And legislature is confused. So, and then at the same time, we're having independent institutions like IBC, EACC, all those ones who get instruction from the state. And that's what I'm trying to say, is a failed state is like a banana republic. Because it's whereby someone borrows money with no accountability. Somebody collects taxes, no accountability. So that's why I'm trying to say, for me, the most important thing is that we need to free Treasury to do its work. That's why can you imagine? The controller of budget controls the budgets on a spreadsheet. You know, they don't control real money. Because money goes to Treasury. Controller of budget decides how the money should be allocated. You had the controller of budget saying that you write a budget this way, but spend the other way around. Here, you're having 3 million shillings as salary, but actually you are given 1 million. So she means that the controller of budget does not control money, but they control how money is allocated, but on a spreadsheet, like it's an Excel sheet, or like on paper. But in reality, Treasury puts the money where they want, which means that control of budget will budget for them, say, Sarah will receive X amount of money, but they're given X times 2. Or Sarah will receive X times 3, but again X times 1. So control of budget has no control of the money. If you cannot control the money, controlling budget on paper is a waste of time. So there's no accountability system in the country. That's why they're telling you they have no money, because you have no way to prove they have no money. And you have no way to prove that they have money. But let me tell you what, someone who is living good life, you look at them, you can see. If you look at the president, the deputy president, you look at the ministers, and you can see they're living good life. Some of them, you'll see where they are now living. Some of them used to be your neighbors. Now they are living in Karen, they're living in Kitusuru. Now some of them are buying houses in US, in Beverly Hills. We know all this information. How can a Kenyan take Kenyan money, convert to dollars, and go and buy a $6 million house, isn't it? Yeah. A $6 million house in Beverly Hills in California, then he comes here and tells you the government is broke. So I can tell you as an economist that there's no brokenness there. There's none. It's just like you, we see how you behave in the bar, but your wife is eating nothing at home. Kids are saying daddy is broke. Daddy has not received a salary. But in the bar, you are the baller. That's what we are seeing here.
So, Prof, what happened maybe if we default? Maybe if a country default?
By the way, Sewe, let me tell you the truth, my brother. That is one thing you should never pray about. Do you know, have you heard Kenyans shouting that the sovereign power belongs to the people? Yes, power. But do you know there's also sovereign responsibility belongs to the people? What does that mean? Okay. If you default on your taxes now, on your debt now, do you know what will happen? Those foreign countries will come and say, now Kenya has defaulted. They look at your bank account. Your bank account, they'll just be kata. Wanakata, wanaweka huko. Because you are the sovereign power belongs to you, and therefore sovereign responsibility belongs to you. If your country defaults, who do they come to? The owner. Okay. Because the government is your dog, isn't it? Now, the owner of the dog is you. When your dog bites somebody there, whom do they come for? The owner of the dog. So, we will pay through our nose. In fact, that's the time you'll wish that all your money you're carrying under your mattress. So, default is serious. They come for the citizens. Okay. Yes, they'll come for your money. For example, those who have money abroad, wataanza kukata huko. And for those of us who have money in the country, they'll look for your dollar account, wanakata. Even if you have 10 account, wanakata to like 50%, 30%, wanakata. Until they pay themselves, because that's why they mean about sovereign debt. Sovereign debt means that the sovereign owner of the money is responsible. So it's not a joke. So Kenyans, what I'm trying to tell you, before you realize, wake up. Let's wake up and put this government to account because they cannot default. A default is to their favor. If we were a welfare state, it's much different, but we're not a welfare state. So for me, let Kenyans wake up and take it seriously, the issue of debt repayment. Let's have a clear discussion, a candid discussion. And that's why I tell people, don't just elect someone to represent you as MP when they don't know the impact of default. You know, this parliament is meant of people, first of all, most of them have fake certificates. Most of them have fake certificates. From governor, senator, MP to MCS. They have fake certificates. Then secondly, most of them are not economists. They don't understand the economic. That's why they passed the Finance Act. Imagine if you want to know that, I'm an economist, I use data. If you want to know that the parliament do not know what they are doing, did you hear the other day Parliament, Senate crying that their salaries have not been paid?
Yeah, what about it?
And did you hear that they have not been given some funds? Now, I told them before they passed the Finance Act, isn't it? And what was the reason? Juguna Njungu told them, the government is broke, we cannot pay you, isn't it? Yes. And I told them, if you pass the draconian bill, the tax collection will go down. When the tax collection goes down, those who earn from that tax collection will miss money. So if I said that, why didn't they get it? No, I get my point, brother. If I told you that, my brother, if you pass this draconian Finance Act, the taxes will go up, tax collection will go down, and the government will collect less. Then the government comes tomorrow and tells you, by the way, we are collecting less, so we cannot pay you 1, 2, 3. So you pass, you take a rope, put in your neck, hang yourself, then you start crying. So if a parliamentarian can hang themselves with a rope, then they are not qualified. So fake certificates is the order of the day. Let me tell you something very interesting. I'm sorry, but I won't mention names. You know, I've been telling people that I have a dream one day if Kenyans tell me that I can be their head of state. Then I hear some people saying, oh, how can you be head of state without becoming MP, without becoming a governor? And is becoming an MP a qualification to run a government? William Ruto was the longest serving MP in the history of Kenya. Is he able to run government because he was an MP? He was the longest serving minister plus deputy president in the history of this country. Is he running government well? We do not need bad experience. We need good experience. Accumulation of clueless government does not make you good a governor. You understand? So, if you want to know, my dream can be real. Somebody, as you speak, wants to become a governor of a certain county, and he doesn't have a degree. So he's trying to look for a degree between now and 2027 and run. So what about me? Me, I don't have a problem with degree, isn't it? Actually, what I'll be looking for, maybe if I can just sell my manifesto to Kenyans, if I can be able to reach out to them and talk to them. What I'm trying to say here is clear that we do not have a qualified parliament even to deliberate on the matters of economics. And I think it's high time Kenyans are looking for parliament makes budget. Can you imagine? An institution with authority of passing a budget is the least qualified economically, to the point that they pass an economic policy that makes them go home bankrupt.
Prof, okay, we've had some of the countries, maybe like Zambia and maybe Ethiopia, they've had issues to do with the debts.
Yeah.
And of course they defaulted. I don't know what happened to their countries.
Yeah, well, you see what happens in those countries, again, like I told you the same thing, that Kenya is quite different from the countries we're talking about, the issue of Ghana and the rest. And I also believe that Kenya can actually not default because of some very important things. One, IMF and World Bank have an office in Treasury. So they will take their money before we get it. Unaona, hiyo yao ni kama ile ya okoa jahazi. Yes, inafuliza. Yani inaingia ikitoka. So they'll take their money before. So that's what I believe will happen. All these things, I've told you, debt is being used as a decoy to make Kenyans say that we have a lot of debt. Sahi ndugu yangu, after your end month salary, ukitaka bibi asikope mwambie, hey, hii mwezi tuko na deni. If you tell bibi, hii mwezi tuko na deni, even if you give him half of what you gave him last month, atakubali. Sivyo? So unaweza sema tena hii mwezi tuko na deni, use that as a decoy, even they'll not ask you for money. So the debt situation in Kenya is not worse than 2022 when Uhuru Kenyatta was the president. Because simply, we do not need any borrowing. So why don't we stop borrowing, or at least borrow proportionately, and put them in development things that can bring the money to pay back the debt we had? Because you cannot borrow money and put them in things that cannot bring the money to repay the debt. And SGR is working, of course, not very well, but Expressway is working. It's working. We borrowed money for Expressway. So in short, even if you forget about those Expressway and SGR, the main story here is that our debt situation is not as it is. The truth will come through court because Linda Jamii is in court. The day Treasury will come and tell us the figures. If they borrowed money from World Bank, X amount of money, was it appropriated by Parliament? If I was the head of state, you know what I'll do? I'll declare that debt is illegal, because a debt not following a procedure is illegal. Once I declare that debt illegal, you'll tell me, okay, what will happen to us? Nothing. I'll tell them, because this debt is illegal, let's negotiate. Let's meet halfway. I pay half, you take half, and we forget about it. And we structure everything and we are good to go. But of course, there are some banks in Kenya who took so much money. Over 50% of our debt comes from domestic debt, which is my concern, because when you borrow a lot of money domestically, you suffocate entrepreneurs from getting money for their business. That's why starting business or capital for business is becoming a big challenge in Kenya. And I remember when Kibaki was the president, some young people left their work in the bank to go start a business because money was circulation. So the challenge we're having here, we have high interest interbank rates. It's very high. When interbank rate is very high, we have high taxation, we have high inflation, we have high unemployment, we have the dollar Kenya shillings currency doing very badly, the purchasing power Kenya shillings goes down, and then at the same time we have all this noise in the economy and all these things. All that put together is a serious ingredient for an economy. And I think that what we need to do is preach peace, first of all, breathe fresh air in the economy by discussing about the issue of positivity in this economy, and then at the same time, cut government debt, cut government expenditure to lower it, as we structure this bad debt which we should not be paying, because there are some debt which are illegal. Some of them are at the rate of 50%. Can you imagine? How can you borrow to a government 50%? Which risk are you covering? So I believe that these things are done strategically, because the problem we have in Kenya is that 98% of businesses in Kenya are controlled by politicians. So what do? They use our economy to do business with their businesses. That's why I'm praying to Kenyans in 2027. Please elect a governance expert, elect an economist, elect a strategist. If you elect those people without electing a qualified politician, you'll better. But if you elect a qualified politician, you'll get what Kenya is getting. If you elect an economist, a governance expert, you might get what Singapore has gotten. But without that, we just have the same thing, and that is the cycle we're going to serve.
I don't know, maybe as we are closing this discussion, I don't know if there is, there is some impact for late repayment of debt. Do you have any impact? Or
yeah, of course. Basically, if you pay late a debt, you actually doing debt restructuring. And even now, if you borrow the money from a certain bank, and debt for draw down debt is today the date for payment and don't pay, normally it accumulates and your debt goes up. And so when your debt goes up and you're not paying it, it also affects your currency. When your currency is affected, it's again start affecting the debt. Like, you know that anytime our currency is affected and we lose one value in the currency, we add 40 billion shillings to our debt stock without borrowing a single coin. Because, for example, if we move from, like now we moved from 120 to 157 between the time Uhuru gave Ruto the sword, and now we have added almost 1.8 trillion shillings to our debt stock without borrowing a single bob. So it's crazy. And then look at here. When Ukuru Yatani, who did Uhuru's budget, was projecting that repayment, he was projecting when the dollar was something like 105. By the time Uhuru was leaving office, the dollar was 120. Already they were struggling, because if you projected the dollar to Kenya shillings rate, because you're borrowing in dollars and you're paying back in Kenya shillings, anytime the shilling depreciates, you need to have more provisions how you pay. I don't even know who advised. Actually, I looked at the paper and I wrote him a message and said, but my brother, you cannot project like this, because we are seeing the dollar is appreciating against the Kenyan shillings. When you're projecting the repayment, you have to use the scenarios, best case scenario, worst case scenario, moderate case scenario, and model in a way that in the worst case scenario, you can still be able to service your debt. Now that the dollar is hitting 157, are you still telling me that when Kenya Kwanza took over in 2022, when the shilling was 120, the repayment is the same? No, it's a lot of money added. The debt stock added. The more debt stock is added, the more your debt goes up, the more it affects your currency devaluation. So it is just a vicious cycle. And that's what I'm asking you that. I'm still waiting. You tell me, my brother, you're seated here. Tell me one single decision William Ruto has made since he became president that is Solomonic. Just tell me one. Because what I've heard is, he said, Kibaki made tough decisions when he became president. Kibaki did not make tough decisions. Kibaki made smart decisions. Ruto is making tough decisions. Are they good? You can answer it for yourself, because that's the outcome. Are they, isn't it? Is he making tough, good decisions? Kibaki never made tough. Actually, Kibaki made smart decisions. So we don't want him to make tough decisions. Make smart decisions.
Well, I don't know, maybe some of the policies that are there, maybe once we've repaid our debt, I don't know, can we borrow again?
Yeah, of course, you see, like every time you repay a debt, your credit score goes up. And that makes you more likely to borrow, isn't it? And you can become more attractive to lend money to. So that actually is good for us. But the point is here is, developed countries are not depending on these companies like IMF and World Bank for borrowing. Why are we borrowing the kind of loans we borrow? Then secondly, it's not about borrowing, it's about which kind of loans you borrow. You know, there's what you call conditional loans and precautionary loans. So conditional loans are loans whereby you are in trouble and you're trying to get out of trouble. What do I mean by that? Suppose you work for a pimp, isn't it? Let's say in the US or in Europe mostly, you can work for a pimp, meaning that you are a girl, and there's a pimp who connects you to people who gives you money for their pleasure, isn't it? If you don't pay a pimp can put your head under the water where you can't breathe, isn't it? Then the pimp gives you condition for releasing you. They tell you, put $10,000 here, or else I smash your head on the water. Or they put your head in the toilet. You know, in the toilet, it's very painful to put your head in the toilet. So that's a conditional loan, whereby you are in trouble and I may be conditioned to release you, isn't it? Now, I'm using this example because you have to understand what the precautionary loans are and debt loans. Precautionary loans are loans you take when you are not in trouble. But you are taking the loans to stop you from being in trouble. Let's say, for example, you just got married and you're working somewhere, and then you discover that there's an incoming retrenchment in your company. And you see yourself being retrenched in 2 years. So you can tell Daddy, give me some loan. I want to start some business for my wife. So if Daddy gives you some loan, you set up a business with your wife. So as your wife is running with the business, for you, you are making some money in this company and also throwing that money into the business so that when you're retrenched, you begin a business and run. That's precautionary loan. But conditional loans is the day you have been fired, you come home, you cannot walk, you can't breathe. So Daddy, I lost my job. Please borrow me 10,000. Daddy look at it and say, now I borrow you 10,000. Can you even pay? You've been fired. Remember, under precautionary, you are more attractive to borrow money and you can put in what you want. But conditional loans, you are given with condition. That's why the IMF says, do what's called structural adjustment. Privatize these organizations. Raise fuel to this amount. Increase these taxes. Introduce that taxes. So they are telling you, if you do this, when we shall give you money. So what I'm waiting for is that if we pay well, and then we can take precautionary loans, which are loans to do what's called asset building that can allow you rake revenue, that can make you maintain government. That's how we run a company. But you don't run a government by unconditional loans. Unfortunately, IMF like giving Africans conditional loans so that they can take control of you. But some people may borrow you money only if you are in trouble. Like if you can tell someone, man, I think in 2 years from now, my economic situation won't be good. Can you borrow me? No, come on, forget about it. But when you come home, when you have no tie, you cannot eat, you are hungry, you are dying, you say, what can you do? People like giving you money when you're in trouble. So is IMF a good brother or a bad brother? A good brother gives you money to stop you from being in trouble. A good brother gives you money even when you are a bad brother, when you are seriously in trouble, that you need them. And without them, you cannot do anything. For example, if you are a biblical scholar, there was a conditional loan in the Bible. Do you know what the conditional loan was all about? Between Esau and Jacob. When Esau was dying of hunger, he told his brother, Bwana, give me food. I'm dying. Chukua hiyo kubwa, wende nayo. So, Esau sold his birthright because of food. When a man is in trouble, you can give him anything. So we want Kenyans to be given money in their own terms, not in the terms of the lender. Anytime you work in the condition of the lender, you are taking a conditional loan which is worse for you. Anytime you are taking a loan in your own terms, you are being precautional and you are using things in your own way and it's good for you.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Yes.
That was so insightful. And of course, we've understand some of the issues to do with the Eurobond and, of course, the debt that the country has. Yeah. And perhaps maybe next time if we call you, maybe you can also give us more insight to do with the other stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Well, until next time, my name is Kevin Sewe. Stay tuned.